Hey everyone, I am Jordan Garcia, and this is the Twitter's Hidden Gems podcast, the show where we interview, highlight, and get to know small creators on Twitter. The goal is simple. We'd like these largely undiscovered people who are incredible at what they do to move from hidden gems to discovered gems. We'll hear about their backstories, their failures, successes, and journey to make their side projects their main source of income. And who knows, we may look back a year from now only to realize that we got to interview the now widely successful content creator when they were just starting. Let's get into the interview. Hey Rob, thanks for joining the Twitter's Hidden Gems podcast. Can you let us know where you're joining from and just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Well, Jordan, it's nice to meet you and connect. I'm calling from Cleveland, Ohio. Um, and a little about me, I guess we'll relate it to Twitter, but real quick, I'm a new father. I have an 11-month-old son. I work a 9 to 5. I'm kind of weird in the sense I enjoy it. I'm a product owner. It's a really challenging gig. And what I'm trying to do on Twitter is I publicly stated a goal of growing a side hustle from 0 to 3,000 in 2023. That I just claimed that in January because I wanted to put my energy towards something. So
Yeah,
that's what got me started and allowed me to put some attention on Twitter in a way that's I guess fulfilling for me, a good place to put energy. So that's kind of what I'm doing as it relates to who I am right now and you know kind of what I'm doing here.
I love that. Also, didn't know that you were a recent dad or recently became a dad. I'll be a first-time dad myself this August. So
Cool. Cool.
super
That's
stoked. I'll have to pick your brain about the stages of having a newborn, but we'll get to that later on, perhaps, or maybe in a different conversation. But you mentioned you're a product owner. What do you do on Twitter, and is it related to your role as a product owner? So, just wanting to delineate the two.
sure. So on Twitter, I'm so much in experiment, figure out, apply what I know in a monetization sense, right? There's different routes to go, and this isn't a knock on anyone, but I really wanted to figure out like what is a problem I can solve, and that was the first question. Okay, it's like yeah, duh. As far as like how that relates as a product owner, one of our jobs is to make sure that we're solving a problem that's the right problem. So people will ask and say, "We want this feature," and my job is not to say, "Okay, we'll build that feature." My job is to say, "Is that really solving the problem that you want?" So there's some skills that transfer over. It's like, okay, what problem do people have on in this audience in this area with people that I think I can solve? And where that started in the beginning of the year was just niche discovery because I was self improvement, right? What I like
Hmm.
talking about, the books I'm reading and all that. But then I spent like 2 months just really genuinely interested in the niche discovery process. I think you kind of phrased this as well, but I always wanted to know what was that point in a creator or entrepreneur's journey where they went from like lost and uncertain to like where they just figured it out, like, and then things start taking off. What I
Yeah.
came to realize is that pivot point is kind of an illusion. It's something that when you're not there yet, you think you have. It's really what the pivot point, if anything, it's that first step forward. It's the goal with the action forward. Then things get clearer. The movement is what makes things clearer. So some of those things became clear to me, and I just talked about it.
Yeah.
And because I talked about it, I started getting DMs. Because I started getting DMs, I saw a pattern of a problem that I could solve. And that, for me, opened up the first lane of monetization, which was coaching. So I started a real small coaching offer a few days after I made that goal. And that's what I've done for the past couple of months. Having to scale back too, because it was a lot at first.
Yeah. I love that. So, just to summarize it, you're a product owner from 9 to 5, right? When you're on Twitter, when you're working sort of your side passion here, or maybe a passion that you get to do on the side rather. It's helping people discover what their niche is, right? What are you getting into? Where do you belong? And that was the problem that you've discovered that you can solve, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's
Very
how
cool.
it started for sure.
Okay. Okay. I love to understand the delineation between the two, if there is one, because sometimes what people post on Twitter, what their niche is on Twitter, is also what they do for a living. And they get to sort of blend those two, which is really cool. I'm not in that camp. I also work a 9 to 5, and I have to gather the mental bandwidth after work to, create what at
Yeah,
least my version of creating content, which is not the greatest. And I'm still trying to figure all that out. So I want to pick your brain a little more about your Twitter journey in a second, but I'm going to take a step back for a little bit because I wanted to have the audience know who you are, of course, what you do, but let's zoom out. I want to just ask a couple of quick rapid fire questions just so we can get to better know you. And I'm going to start with a classic. So in your world, would you rather have coffee or tea?
coffee. Um, yeah, coffee. I've tried doing like the matcha tea because it seems like it'd be more spiritual and calming. I can't. It's just part of it's like my 5 a.m. is that coffee. So yeah, coffee for sure.
Sweet. Speaking of that, man, I get up at 5 a.m. as well. And I was drinking coffee first thing in the morning. And then I kept reading all these Twitter threads about how you're supposed to wait 60 to 90 minutes before ingesting caffeine and all this stuff. And I've been trying to work on this. I think I've got it up to about an hour and 15 minutes after waking up until I drink some. So all the Twitter gurus say it's better for your body. You won't have a crash later on. Anyhow,
I
random thing. I
believe
used
it.
to
Yeah,
drink it.
yeah.
Yeah, there's neuroscience behind it that I'm not nearly smart enough to articulate, but anyhow, that's what I'm trying to work on. But okay, moving on. Generally speaking, I know this may not be a Twitter approved answer, but would you rather read a book or watch a movie?
Can I cheat a bit? Because I
Hit
listen
me.
to books. Listen,
Okay.
does it count?
Yeah, no, that's
Um,
that's ingesting books, audiobooks, right?
yeah, I listen to a lot of books. Yeah, yeah. Re- I'd like to get back into like the reading and kind of doing both. I mean, this is a sidebar, but you read a lot. Like I'm reading a lot of books. I'll go through books that I can apply. I feel like for the past several years, I've been reading too much. Like go
Mm,
from this book about marketing, go to this book about sales, read Alex Hermosi's $100 million offer. What I'd
right.
like to do now is my new frame is read one book a month, listen to it, read the book, and take notes throughout, and then apply it. Just go a lot slower with the consumption of information because now I have a place to apply it. So a little sidebar on that, just because we're talking about books
I love that, man. Actually, this is why I like asking the rapid fire questions because there's so many tangents I think we can take. So I'm gonna sidebar with you for a second there because I did read from someone recently that it's a vanity metric to collect books read in a given year, right? And I have friends that I love them to death, but they brag about this. Oh, I've read 36 books in 2022. I'm going to read 50 in 2023. The actual metric that matters is what are you applying? And I would contend that if you find one really good book and you apply the crap out of it and you read nothing else to the end of the year, you're better off doing that than reading 50 books and applying nothing. And I
exactly.
love that. I'm also trying to make this transition in my life as well. And dude, I'm going to be a cliche person for a second. The one book I'm really trying to apply the most is from Atomic Habits. I'm trying to apply the principles that he lays out in that book because I feel like if I could solidify my habits and make that something I'm actually doing on a daily basis, then where I want to go in time will take place. And so I'm trying to do what you're doing as well. Like becoming a minimalist, if you will, with my book
Yes,
consumption.
yes.
I love
I
that.
feel it. Yeah,
Absolutely. And it doesn't again, you can't brag about it, but then again, if you're truly applying what you're reading, it most likely wouldn't need bragging and it would probably be a result. It would be displayed in the results that you give to the world and give to your content and give to whatever you're doing. So it's one of those show don't tell kind of things.
for
All right.
sure.
I'll move along. So going to the topic of music, would you rather listen to classical or jazz if you had to pick between the two?
Classical or jazz? You know what? Probably I'd like to say jazz because it sounds cool and it's like intricate, but in reality, my default is classical because it's very much, if you type in study playlist or focus music, you'll get some you'll get some classical. And I wish I could pull out some names. I just can't think of any. But
Yeah.
yeah, classical is what comes up. Jazz would be more of a I'm actually listening. Wow, that's interesting. You know what
Ah,
I mean? As far as the music goes.
yeah. I see. I see. I'll move on. Not because I like the topic of personal finance, but just curious. Are you more of a
Yeah.
saver or a spender?
Ooh, frugal, smart, saver. Have to be. I'm a sole provider for my family. I'm not. Um, I'm making good money, and I'm able to do this, and I'm very happy about that. Uh, but it's just smart spending, and but it's also there's a mindset too. And I know you're a finance guy, right? Don't you? That's kind of a big thing with you.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep. Absolutely.
is not saving because you feel like you can't make more money because like that's like a scarcity mindset, but saving because it's like minimalist purchase. What I purchase is going to be quality, it's going to be more expensive, it's going to be long lasting. I'd rather have nicer stuff than a bunch of junk chichare, right? Like um so yeah, I mean, I guess saver is the answer, but there's still this desire to improve the top line more than to cut my life to absolute nothings, you know?
Dude, couldn't agree more. There's a floor to how much you can cut, but the ceiling to how much you can make is it doesn't exist.
Yeah, I don't know who first said that, but I think I heard Grant Cardone say it back when I was really into his stuff, and I'm like, that's it, man. Like that's a good energy to think about what you do with your job or whatever it is. Just, you know, not drinking coffee at Starbucks is not going to get you to where you want to be, you know?
Exactly. Oh, exactly. Man, it's funny you mentioned Grant Cardone because I worked in sales when I was straight out of college, and I used to read and listen to a lot of Grant Cardone's books. Haven't listened to the guy in a while, but it's definitely a great
Same.
a great sentiment to have. I think it also sort of inadvertently speaks to the abundance versus scarcity mindset, and so
Yeah.
I think I'm definitely looking to increase the income more than I am to cut expenses. Even though I do like to optimize my expenses as well, because obviously I'm going to be smart with that. But the last question I have, which isn't an either or, but you mentioned you're from Cleveland, so just curious, are you a Browns fan?
I'm a Browns fan for as long as I can each season until there's a point. There's a point where, hey, I'm not spending the 4 hours to be angry anymore. Okay. If we're if we say 500, I'm committed to watching the 4 hours usually. But once we start falling off that, and we're looking at next year already, um, yeah. So yes, Browns fan, but very much fair weather. They got to earn it for me to be committed throughout the year.
That's understandable. It hasn't been
Where
the easiest go for Browns fans recently.
where are you from, by the way? Did you tell you said Chicago?
So I'm actually from the Dallas area. I live in the outskirts of Dallas, from Houston originally. So unfortunately, I'm a Houston Texans fan. You guys got our
Uh,
quarterback recently, so Deshaun Watson obviously traded to the Browns. I think he's a great pickup for you guys, and I really believe in the future you guys will be so much better because of him. Personal opinion, but I live in the Dallas Fort Worth area, and that's where I base out of now. And football is sort of king here, so got a lot of
oh yeah,
Dallas Cowboys fans to deal with on a daily basis. So
yeah. They got your number currently, but we'll see.
yeah, that is what it is. So I'll get past the sort of the rapid fire questions. I'd love to ask you a little more about the work that you do. You mentioned earlier that you discovered your niche through dissecting what problems you can solve. Got into
Hmm.
personal coaching. That's you said you had to scale back a little bit because you sort of got in over your head. That's a great problem to have. Did you just find your clients through posting and then they DM'd you, or was there anything that you did to find coaching clients? How did that process start and then sort of develop for you?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's going to speak to a lot of like what I'm going through now. I didn't, so I did not actively do any outreach. I had inbound and to start. So I mean, the timeline is literally this, and it's not to brag. It's just to kind of show what might be possible.
Yeah.
with framing and everything, is January 2nd. I said, my goal this year is to make 3,000 a year, 3,000 a month by the end of the year. And during that time, I'm like, okay, well, then I said, what do I have to do? I said, let's put an offer together. So I put together a coaching offer, and that's it. Like just the offer, no framework behind that, no like action. I just kind of thought it through, made the outline, and before that, I had a lot of conversations in the DMs. And after I created the offer, I was just looking for feedback. Like genuinely, I asked people who I had good conversations with. I would say something like, "Hey, I always thought you were pretty sharp. I like the way you phrase these types of things. Could you give me some feedback about my offer? It's live now. I'm trying to just make it better." By doing that, I actually got three or four of the people who I already connected with. They saw it. They thought it was a insane price. They told me that the price should be higher, and they actually booked it. Okay, so there was some trust
Wow.
there, but it was also like, I know I see this, and I'm actually going through it now. Like there's these coaches that I really respect that talk about these high ticket items, and that's the way to go, right? But
Sure.
I was really trying to get my experience coaching. I've never done it, but the reason it sold so fast and I was able to get my feet wet in a sense is because it was a high value thing, one-on-one coaching with someone who's able to articulate things at least at a very low price. So that's what
Hmm.
happened. Uh, I got 5 or 6 clients in that first month, and then I'm like actively taking this outline I had in my head and trying to coach it, trying to create, let's say, assignments so I can help someone else, pull someone else to where I was. But that was all happening very fast. So that was actually a great experience to show me like what I need to do, what kind of structure I need. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So your preparation or your outline for your first coaching call, how did that differ and how does it differ from a coaching call that you would take today?
Yeah. Um, so the first one, it was just like I would almost like over prepare because I was so unsure of myself, and I would like look through our DMs and see if there's something I can ask. This is for that first one, right? But then it ended up being like I was able to ask good questions. The whole idea of that first call is to find out if this is a 30-day program. I know what someone signed up for, but what did they really sign up for? Like what outcomes are they expecting? Regardless of what it
Hmm.
says on the offer page, that's what we tried to dig into. So they would say something, and it was just a matter of clarifying and then saying like, well, why aren't you there now? Um, Other good questions. So I found as I was doing this, some other good questions and frameworks to ask on a good first coaching call are, what other coaching programs have you taken before, right?
Mm,
what
yeah.
what's worked, what hasn't worked, and all that is able to was able to help me customize a bit. Like this didn't work for me, this did work for me. Again, iterating over time, but that's kind of what that those first calls were, was just kind of understanding where this person's at, what they expected, and laying out the framework, what the path is for the next 4 weeks.
I
So
love
that's
that.
how it was. Yeah.
So your offer includes 4 weeks of coaching. Is it once a week, twice a week? What does it look like? If someone signed up to work with you, what would that schedule look like?
Initial offer was two calls, one to start, and one to finish and cement everything. In between those calls, there were 4 assignments for introspection, and additionally, I gave them unlimited DM support, which ended up being something I did not do in this new version of the offer. So
Hmm.
let's say I had a V1, version one is what I started with. I also did a content audit, so I gave a lot. I gave a lot of time and support, and it wasn't as structured as I'd like. And one thing that happened for me was this was a 30-day offer, right? Instead of it being 30 days, a lot of these clients bled in 45, 50 days, just because there was not a clear structure. I took that. That was a problem, right? It was like, okay, this is not good. So when I did version 1.5 is what I'll say I'm on now. 1.5 and was version 2 is I said, okay, when I work with these clients, I'm going to have clear expectations, clear weekly calls, weekly assignments, not have unlimited DM support, but take on less clients, provide more higher value and just serve in a different way. So, doing with, I guess my point is, without that messy beginning, I wouldn't have nothing to iterate on, right?
Right.
Uh, Even you, if you like, if you're starting a podcast. But by the way, this seems really polished. This seems like really good. It seems like you. There's always going to be a first time for everything. So that's just kind of how I present things and how I'm thinking about when I'm feeling, I guess, like an imposter. Just realizing, like, yeah, you're going to feel uncomfortable because it's your first time.
Yep.
The first time, a surgeon does brain surgery for the first time ever, do you think he's going to feel confident about it, or he's going to be nervous? He's going to be nervous, and
Ab-
that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, tangent. But yeah, that's kind of where things are at with me.
No, I love it, dude. I love it because you're speaking powerful truths that I think any creator needs to know and realize, and probably will realize at some point in time. But it's something that I've had to overcome in myself. I have a lot of perfectionist tendencies, and I've realized, okay, to get past this, I've just got to put something out there, crappy or not. I've just got to get version one out in the open, and then I'll iterate over time. But I'll never have the opportunity to iterate or improve if I never get something out. And that's been something that has helped me sort of just get past the desire to be perfect. That sounds so weird because I know it's unattainable and perfectionism is a myth. By and large, we're humans. But my brain would do this thing where it's like, well, let's not start this yet because it won't be good. And let's not do this because you're going to be embarrassed. But now I literally feel like I can't wait to look back a year from now and cringe at what I did a year ago, because I
Wonderful.
hope
Yeah.
that a year from now I've done so much more. I've iterated so much and I've improved the process so much that hopefully a year from now when I'm doing this podcast, I hate to say it this way, not because of you, but because of me, because of my setup, because of the way I probably wrote the intro to this and all of it. I hope to look back and cringe because at least it shows that I started somewhere, and to have that sort of rough draftness out there, that's what I want. And that resonates with me 1,000%. And I love that people like yourself on Twitter bring light and shed light on this topic. The fact that, look, it doesn't need to be pretty. Get it out there. You mentioned you had a version one, you're on 1.5. You learned some valuable lessons, and some of the lessons that I would assume you have learned from 1 to 1.5 sound really impactful, but you would have never learned them if you wouldn't have started something. So I have a question going back to
Sure.
your coaching, what you've done. You said you're a dad. How have you balanced, working 9 to 5, coaching clients, while also being a father, and I would assume just a spouse or someone on the other end of a relationship? How have you balanced all of that? Because that's something I'm currently struggling with.
Yeah. I mean, you're gonna have the baby, so like enjoy this time that you think you have now, or even if it feels limited. So let me just be like straight. Is I when I before my son was born, I thought I had all the time in the world, and I thought I was disciplined. I realized that after my son was born, I didn't really know what discipline was. There's a it's different because there's no flex. It's like you have to wake up at 5 before baby gets up. So I'll just talk personally about my routine. I wake up at
Yeah.
5 a.m. Okay, every day, weekends, very consistently. I haven't drank in 11 months now.
Oh,
Um,
it's awesome. Congrats.
because of that, and I like enjoyed it, but I don't like having to skip a morning because that's my only time to do what I do. So
Yeah.
between 5 and 7, I'm working on my business, which is content, which is uh, which is client work, right? Um, which is strategizing too. And I know it sounds vague, but like thinking about what scale looks like. So 5 to 6:30, 5 to 6 some mornings when I go to the gym. But that's the key time. That's the best think time. That's when I'm trying to do the big strategic work. I've also done and taken calls between 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. like we're doing now.
Right.
But I was stretching things from like 9 to 11 for a bit just to get things started, especially when I had those 7 clients in January to kind of fit all the work in. What I scaled back and realized is the sacrifice of sleep was affecting my brain. I was slower, less sharp.
Yeah.
So I cut things. Um, so Jordan, what I'm trying to say is I work at the edges of my day, and what the way I find balance is to get super clear on what my goal is. When I say my goal is 3K a month by the end of 2023, that's the goal I'm committed to. That's different than me saying I'm going to grow 10,000 followers by the end of the year. Because if
Right.
that was my goal, I'd be doing different activities. So my goals and my focus are very much aligned with that. And that's helpful because when you have too many conflicting things that you think are similar, that's where you can feel stress. At least I wanted to speak for myself, but I've heard it with
Sure.
clients I've speaking with too. So that's kind of a important thing to get because everyone's busy. So get
Right.
committed on the goal.
Yes. You're speaking directly to me, man. That's this is the topic I'm currently trying to work through right now. I have a lot of interests. I play drums, I train jujitsu, I have my day job, I have the things I'm trying to do on Twitter, all this stuff. And I go to the gym. So there's like personal fitness, there's jujitsu, there's playing drums and getting better at that, right? There's all these things that vie for my time. And if I'm not careful, I end up being really average at all of these things. And I never feel fulfilled in any of the facets that I'm involved in because I'm just making moderate progress in each of these categories. And so one thing I've had to sit back and recently do is ask myself, okay, where are we going? What is the goal? And how am I going to get there? And it sounds like you have your laser focus on what you want to do, and that's how you're able to fit it in on the fringes of your day, in the morning, at night. So that makes sense. That's a goal that's not a goal. That's a takeaway that I have from this conversation is that I really need to limit, what I'm working on because I work on a lot of stuff at one time without realizing it. Not multitasking, but more of trying to be good at a bunch of stuff. And I really need to just have that laser focused vision. Thank you for sharing that
Yeah,
one. So another question I have for you is with the work that you do, not product owner, not your product owner role, but with your coaching, what has been your favorite aspect of it and then your least favorite?
good question. I think my favorite aspect was going from a place of not sure if I can do this to genuinely feeling confident about it due to the conversations that I'm having with my clients and some
Yeah.
takeaways and impact that they're having. Like I had a call with someone this morning, 5:30, right? It was early. Um, and it was great. There was challenges, but I'm gaining confidence and becoming more valuable as a coach as I do this. Experience is king, and I'm getting that experience, and I'm actively learning. The other thing is like, so you remember that we talked about those books in the beginning of the conversation?
Hmm.
I have a place and a content plan of consumption and applying it, right? So I'm reading things like books that are really affecting me, taking notes, and I'm able to apply it very directly to someone else. It's being able to teach and distill knowledge is like the ultimate way to gain that knowledge. So having a place, an outlet for that is so much different than before when I was just learning to try to figure things out. Now I'm learning and having an application, and that's selfishly awesome.
Yeah. So that's been your favorite part. Are there any
Yes.
downsides? What's been your least favorite aspect of it?
Um, I would say it's a time commitment. I'm probably pricing my offer way too low still. One of the reasons is I want experience. The other one is because I'm battling imposter syndrome and figuring out what outcome is worth more money.
Sure.
Because it's a time commitment, I'm not able to do and iterate on some other things that I'd like to that would move me toward my goal. So maybe testing out digital products, right? I want to create those
Yeah.
and create tests for those. But client comes first. So sometimes the work that I'd like to, there's work I'd like to do strategically, and I have to put that lower on the list. That's the downside, just the time commitment for sure.
Yeah. I feel that 100%. And I don't have a kid yet. So I know this is only going to magnify whenever the kid comes into the picture. So I know it's going to get worse. So I'll move away from that because I know we have a few minutes left and I wanted to ask if you're willing to share this, and I'm not trying to dig up dirt or ask you to share anything embarrassing, but I am curious, personal life, professional, however you feel to answer this, what would you say one of your biggest failures has been? And then beyond that, what has been a takeaway that you left with, after looking at your failure?
Yeah. Hey, great question. And don't feel the need to rush. I can keep going. I'm enjoying the conversation, so it's up to you. Um,
Sweet.
so as far as the biggest failures, so I've tried to do several side hustles, um, and even before that, like I was not really an ambitious. I was ambitious but fluffy about it. Like I was you know, um, just not a focused individual, and I have some
Mm,
regrets about that. But once I started turning that around, I tried Amazon FBA. I've tried two products. I've uh, written books that made some money, but really nothing to brag about. But the biggest failure behind those is doing it alone, right? So not everything has to
mm,
be built in public, but it was so like even my close friends, like I didn't tell them about it, right? I have two buddies I meet up with every year. We live in different parts of the country, but I didn't like that's something that would be cool to share. Like, hey guys, I'm doing this because it's a lonely struggle,
mhm.
right? And it's supposed to be hard, but it doesn't have to be hard alone. You can have people, hey man, I've been through that, or yeah, I'm actually at this stage. So then you'll have people behind you, and you can feel encouraged because you got over that step. You'll have a little more confidence about your own competence, and then you'll also have people who feel the same way a couple steps ahead of you. So
Yeah,
that was my biggest regret failure is doing these things I put a lot of time and energy into, and I was just a lone wolf when it's like a big world, and there was an opportunity to connect, and I probably could have made more progress if I was more, I guess, vulnerable. It was like that perfectionism. I had this
yeah.
product that I felt like was like an amateur, so I didn't share it with anyone. I didn't share it with my personal Facebook audience. I'm sure people would have supported me, you know. So that was one that I will share, and also a reason of where I'm at today. Like that experience has reframed. Now I'm talking about that up and down type stuff.
Yeah. It's an incredible takeaway. And I think if I remember correctly, when I first found your Twitter page, man, what made me want to follow you was your transparency, was the vulnerability I felt come through in your writing that resonated. And so I'm thinking back to your answer. Why do you think it was difficult for you to not include or share what you're working on with your friends, with people that you trusted? I'm assuming you trust the folks you meet up with, every now and then. But why do you think it was difficult to share it with him?
Yeah, it's a good question. It seems it kind of seems silly now because I'm in a different place mentally. I'm just like a different person. But at the time, what my feelings were was this is because I was comparing myself to the people who I was following. So let's say the millionaires
Mm,
who had exits on Amazon, right? They created a product, they private labeled it, they had an exit for 7 million, or other people in groups who were like pulling in a couple hundred K a month. The gap was so vast that I felt like an amateur, that I was like that, I'm talking to these big I'm just trying to like find the right analogy, but what it felt like was that I was in a room with a bunch of adults and I was like this kid. That wasn't
mm,
really the case because we're the same age, but it was just the feeling that I'm like this amateur who's still trying to figure out how to get his costs dialed in and get his basic documents filled out. So because that feeling was there, it's not something like I didn't want to share with my friends because I felt like they're like, "What are you doing, dude?
yeah,
Focus on something important. You're grow up, right?" Which
right.
wasn't true at all because when I did share it with them, they were impressed because it was a totally different. That's the exact reason again for why you should share because you're going to be comparing yourself if you don't have people around you like building you up or at least giving you that props for starting because that's a big step. Even what you said what you said before about cringing, you want to cringe, you wanted to cringe a year from now. there's a lot of people who have not taken that first hurdle to even be able to start something like you are, and like that's a big hurdle to overcome, you know.
Yeah.
So for anyone who's like kind of on that, I want to start something but I don't know what, like this is that first step, and it feels so good. It's going to put you in a different place mentally. I'm just speaking from my own experience.
Yeah. No, that's a great takeaway for anyone listening. It's a crucial step. And I forgot, maybe it was Zig Ziglar. I know he's one of the classic motivational speakers, but it was either him or someone else that talked about, I'm paraphrasing, but essentially the price of admission to to ever be successful is being willing to be embarrassed by your early attempts. And not to make this about jujitsu, but I train that. There's a lot of parallels to life. I've been training for a year and 3 or 4 months now, and I remember when I first started, I looked terrible doing the techniques, the moves that we were learning. I didn't know how to do anything well. And there was an element of my mind that was like, hey, you should probably just back away from this because you suck at this right now. Like, you don't look good doing it. You look like a flailing cat right now. What are you doing? Right. And the advice that we kept getting from our teachers over and over is just keep showing up. Just keep showing up, putting the reps in. You'll look back a year from now and you'll realize, wow, all those things that you were struggling with a year ago, you don't struggle with anymore. And they really taught me to be comfortable with looking dumb. I don't know how else to say that. That actually translated to real life whenever I'm doing anything on Twitter, anything in the realm of content creation. I'm now willing to look dumb because what I just tell myself in my mind is I'm just a white belt in content creation. Because in jiu-jitsu I start as a white belt and then you get ranks from there. You move up the color ranks and you get stripes on your belt and all that stuff. So I'm willing to be a white belt at podcasting. I'm willing to be a white belt at whatever it may be, writing on Twitter or DMing people, or whatever the case may be, because to me, the price to pay for all this and where I think you want to go, where I think a lot of content creators want to go is they want to have something that they can financially sustain themselves with, right? They want their passion project to take off,
Yeah.
and to get there, we have to put in those reps and be willing to be embarrassed or dumb looking. But I'm glad you shared that you did finally share this with your friends, because this is something I haven't done yet, man. I haven't shared what I'm doing on my Facebook page yet. For some reason, it feels easier to share it with a bunch of strangers online
Yep.
because nobody
Yeah.
can judge me. It's like, you guys don't know me from anyone else, but it feels more real and more vulnerability inducing whenever I open up to my immediate circle of people that I'm connected to on Facebook and I'm like, hey guys, this is what I'm working on, blah, 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 whatever comes from that. So, did you feel worried or more exposed, if you will, when you opened up to people around you that are in your circle of friends and said, hey guys, this is what I'm working on? Like, tell me what your thoughts are. Did you feel that level of like, holy cow, there's like a plane I have to cross here that would leave me a little more exposed?
Yeah, what you're saying is absolutely true. I think part so I'll just, I've everyone's kind of like doing their thing, right? Like everyone's kind of doing their thing, and when you're talking about your circle that you're familiar with, it's hard because they know you in a certain way, right? That's
Mm,
who you've been. Who you are
yeah.
now is different. Okay, so it's like it's not a necessity to share with that circle, but it also doesn't have to, it doesn't have to hold you back. And I'm so I guess what I'm trying to say is it's because you're saying, hey, I'm this person now, I'm doing this. That's a different version of you, right? And then you go back to this group that's familiar. Let's call that Facebook group. It's friends, people who've known you from your past, knew you in a certain way, and you tell them you're this. There's this, like, you have to revisit who you were in the past.
Yeah.
Whereas with strangers, you just say, I'm this person now, I'm going here. No one's saying, wait, aren't you the guy that did this back then?
Ah,
Right? Like, that's why
it's
it's
a great
hard
point.
because, and you don't really have to worry about that. You don't even have to acknowledge them. If you have, I don't know if you're talking about Facebook, because Facebook is, to me, is filled with acquaintances that have with of people whose opinions you really don't give it s about. You know what I mean? Like, in a sense. Like, there's
Absolutely.
friends and family on there that I'm in a different place now, and if they think what I'm doing is silly, I, their their opinion of me is less valuable than close friends. And that, right? Why should I let someone else? make me feel bad about going on a pursuit. So I think
Right.
there's a caution there too. So not just to say share it with everyone. That's my thoughts on it.
Yep. Being more selective with who you share it with, and yeah, that makes more sense. Basically, if I wouldn't trust them for advice, then I shouldn't value any criticism that comes from someone.
Yeah,
Okay. Makes perfect sense. Also, what a great observation about the difference in who we are in people's minds from folks we went to high school with on Facebook. That's a great point, man, because I know that a lot of those people that I'm friends with on Facebook, they're acquaintances I went to high school with, they know me as this one guy in their brain. And if I were to come out as not come out, but say something about where I am now, something that I'm doing differently, it would rewrite in an essence, or they'd have to allow it to
yeah,
rewrite their understanding of me. Whereas when I'm meeting you, you take me only in my current present time.
yeah,
You don't have a timeline of history of like, wait, weren't you that guy in high school that did this? That's a beautiful like observation because I think that's why it's so easy to make friends with people on Twitter because we're picking up relationships and building friendships where we are now, not
mm,
with all the stuff that comes from high school, college, anything that we've done to date. So that is a great observation. And I think it explains why it can be very difficult to announce what you're doing to close friends or even to the Facebook world. If you ever wanted to go to Facebook and see if you had potential clients on Facebook that would,
yeah.
that would
No,
work with you.
that's really well said. Restated. I like it.
You made the observation. I'm noting it for sure for me. So I do want to land the plane, and with landing the plane, I do want to ask because obviously the podcast is looking to highlight people on Twitter that I think are more deserving of a larger audience, but maybe they just haven't been discovered by the amount of people that I would think they'd be discovered by. So in your Twitter, people call it the Twitter journey. I don't want to be that cheesy guy that's like, "How's your Twitter journey going?" Not what I'm asking, but when you look at your time on Twitter, what you're doing, your content creation, just the time on the platform as a whole, what has been, your biggest challenge with building an audience, with content creation? Uh, I'm not trying to answer the question for you, so I'll back up. What has been your biggest challenge when you think about logging into Twitter? What comes to mind as one of the biggest challenges that you faced, and how are you overcoming it?
Yeah, I definitely have challenge with the whole growth side of Twitter. For context and place and time, I started in October, right? First time on there. I have about 800 followers, 815. That's pretty good, right?
Yeah,
But there's that comparison. There's people who are like growth hacking or just really good at the whole audience building game. And there's a challenge that you see that as success because it is, but not letting it conflict with your own personal goals. Like that's where I think clarity is important. So I claimed how much time I have a day, right? I claimed what my goals are. And if I get seduced by someone else's journey, which can happen because people are sharing their journey on Twitter, and if people are
hmm
succeeding and you're in a place of discouragement, again, I'm talking about myself, but like if I'm in a place of discouragement, I see someone, getting 300 followers overnight. I'm like, huh, maybe I should play their game. Okay, so they're commenting 50 times a day. They are doing 3 giveaways a month, and that's good stuff. But all of a sudden, the goal that you said you were committed to becomes fuzzy because now you think that's the hard part is like staying on your path because
yeah,
you see there's so much opportunity in a sense. So that's where I'm definitely challenged with because it happens to me. I'm like, okay, maybe I should go this direction because now I'm thinking about a digital product because I've coached, but now I'm thinking, okay, what makes digital products succeed? It's audience, right? It's engaged audience. So now I'm looking at that. Maybe I'll take a month off to experiment there. Um, a month off from coaching. So yes, it's that.
yeah, dude, resonates so much with me. I told you you're my second interview on this podcast. There's the someone I interviewed last Wednesday. At the time I interviewed him, he had roughly I think 650 to 700 followers, maybe 600 to 650. By Saturday evening, he was over 1,000,
Hmm.
and I was like, "Holy cow, that is incredible growth!" And there was this part of my brain. He'll probably listen to this podcast and laugh at me. But there's part of my brain that is incredibly happy for him, and there's another part of my brain that's like, "What the heck are you doing, Jordan? You freaking suck! Like you're stuck at 225 followers. What are you doing?" And I realize I there's this is the difficult thing to look at, which is context. And when you see someone's Twitter page, because the people that I see growing, leaps and bounds, the time commitment that they're giving to Twitter is incredibly it's a lot more than what I'm doing right now. And so I have to realize, contextually speaking, I'm putting in probably 30 to 50 minutes a day,
Yeah.
at this point in time because of work, because of life. And I know people that are putting in 4 to 6 hours a day. They're commenting 50 times a day. They're writing 2 to 3 tweets and 3 threads and 3 giveaways per month, like you said. And I don't have the bandwidth for that right now, nor do I have the desire to do that. So, context, and this is why I just posted about this evening, but comparison is, man, it robs a lot of the joy that I have in doing Twitter, because I realize not everyone's starting where I am. Not everyone has a situation that you have. You have an incredibly tight window with which to work on what you want to work on. Whereas someone that's just a college student, they go to class, they can come back to their dorm, they can work on Twitter for hours. You don't have that. I don't have that, but you have less time than I do. And so I think realizing that I'm better than who I was a month ago, that I'm better than who I was yesterday, that's what keeps me going. And competing with myself is what I'm trying to do. Man, but comparison traps are so easy to fall into.
Yeah,
Super
I mean
easy, especially when you
these
see.
are yeah. The words we say are like really good in theory. They're really hard in execution, but they're
Yeah.
worthy pursuits regardless, right? Like just recognizing that it's hard, but it's probably worthwhile to be really good at. What I mean is really good at focusing on yourself. It's hard
Yeah.
because it's going to happen again, probably next week, tomorrow. But
Yep.
just remembering like why it's important. So like I appreciate the conversation and the mind share on this.
Absolutely. So if anyone was looking to work with you, what's something that you would say to them to either give them peace of mind or direction to better understand, is working with Rob something I should consider, something I should do?
Yeah,
Not to put you to make a quick sales pitch, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
no pitch. If you enjoyed this conversation, there's no like the way I approach things is it's really there's a mindset that can happen, and I know mindset sounds vague, but what I'm really after is helping to get to a high performance type mindset to better your thinking, and how I'm doing that is myself. I'm upgrading my own thinking, and that's where it starts. It actually starts with that commitment. So helping those to get committed on a goal. Because if you can get committed on a goal, you can get focused and get aligned with your actions. And that just taking away goal conflict takes you further than you can imagine. So that's like a first step. But
Yeah.
if I'd say if anyone's going through that, that's what clarity is. It's eliminating conflicting goals because it's hard to build a bunch of buildings like this instead of build a building like that. So that's kind of where I
Yeah.
help people. And if that sounds appealing, if that sounds like a struggle that you're going through, happy to chat either DMs or discovery call. And yeah, I'm really enjoying coaching too. So
I love it, man. And it's evidence from this conversation that you've been able to practice what you're preaching. You took away the distractions, you honed in on one goal, and that's what you're chasing. And honestly, that's the takeaway of my call with you, is I need to do this. I need to get better at removing the peripheral things that my eyes focus on and just focusing on that one goal, building vertically instead of building high vertically, instead of building small structures horizontally and stretching out over a bunch of stuff. So this takeaway alone is helping me. This conversation alone is helping me. And I like to end on this question. We've had a 48-minute conversation thus far. Is there anything that you were hoping or wished I would have asked you that I haven't? And if so, what was that question?
that's always a good question. I was trying to think of something, but one that came to mind was an opportunity to talk about some books that have recently impacted me because we're talking about applying books. So that's something that was interesting. Is like what what information or what material have you recently applied to your business or philosophy?
That would have been a great question. Hit me with it. Hit me with the 3 books that you would say are resonating with you right now.
Sure. One of them that I pulled from here about, your past self and stuff is Future Self by Dr. Benjamin Hardy. I'm really studying and using those concepts. It's becoming who you want to be in the present. So it's thinking 10 years out and living through that reality today. It's a mind shifter, and especially for people who started to take action and got over that first step of imposter syndrome, it's hugely beneficial because you'll start to paint that picture. That one, um, maybe this is cliche in Twitter world. Maybe I'm assuming things, but building a second brain, the by Tigo Forte, it really organized my. I never used Notion. I was skeptical of it because everyone was selling products, but I
Right.
use the para framework. I'll just go. The first part is to have a project. So all the things you learn, if you could apply it toward a project, that makes a huge difference. Um, so those are the two. I'm also reading Personality isn't permanent, but it's more of the same from Dr. Benjamin Hardy. So I would just focus on those two. One gives you structure to the information you consume and a focus, and the other one shifts your confidence on who you can be. It really removes some limiting beliefs.
I love it. I've taken notes on this, by the way. So I've typed in all 3 of these titles. I'm going to add at least one of them. I think I'm most interested in Future Self by you said Dr. Benjamin Hardy.
Yeah, it's worth it. And if you're not sure if you commit to a book, check out his work on YouTube. You can find a 10-minute clip and say, okay, because that's what he's talking about right now is that kind of content.
Sweet. Rob, this has been great. And for anyone listening, can you just tell us what I'll tag this, of course, online, but tell us where people can find you on Twitter, or if there are other socials that you have, let us know. I want people to know where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter. I don't have a really great profile name, but it is at Rob Ran ROBRAN 6116. You can find Rob Rando, and my moniker is the Chillionaire. So that's where I'm spending most of my time. I'm also on Medium. I've written about 100 articles on there, but again, my focus, I'm committed to Twitter right now. But yeah, I love chatting. I love connecting in DMs. So please feel free.
Sweet. I love it, man. Thank you for the time tonight. I know it is a late night for you. It's 10:23 your time, so hope you get some sleep soon. We'll connect on Twitter as time goes on in the future. Looking forward to what you put out and moving forward, man. So thanks again for the chat. We'll connect later on.
Jordan, it was great to chat with you, and I appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. Later, Rob.
Later.
That's it for today's show. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you listened this far, you're the real MVP. If you like this episode, please drop us a 5-star review. For every 5-star review I receive, I'll give my dogs a treat. I swear. Lastly, be sure to follow me on Twitter at The Good Steward. That's THA Good Steward. And if you'd like to nominate someone to be interviewed on this podcast, please send me an email. My email is jcgarciamoney@gmail.com. Until next time, everyone, see you later.